All right, ring the bell, Oshkosh Bagosh. Ring it already, will you? Come on, it's 4 o'clock. Market's closed. Hit the buzzer. There you go. New York Stock Exchange closed. NASDAQ closed. Wall Street closed, but we're open. We're open for business. We're open for politics. We're open for news. Let's take a look how the market ended. I have 91. There we go. 91 and a half points lower. It's very quiet today. Very subdued day today. NASDAQ up a little bit. VIX drifting lower. We like that idea. Gold holding. Look at that gold up almost $20 an ounce again, approaching $3,400 an ounce. You always like to see oil down a touch. And let me just do this. There's a couple of big stocks that were in the news recently. First of all, the most valuable company on the planet. Did you know what it was? It used to be Apple for a while. Then it became Microsoft for a while. The most valuable company in the whole wide world is NVIDIA. It's the stock. It's the company who Trump is getting along with very well. He's getting along with Mr. Huang, who's running NVIDIA, making sure that our AI is chip production is fully going strong. So NVIDIA up a little bit again, up a bunch, about another $1 or so, up to 141. Apple very strong. Tesla backed off $12 a share today. So a little bit of mixed all over the board. And I wanted to point out that Bitcoin backed off a little bit too, 105,000 even, 105,000 even right now. Again, the big high was 112,000 a couple of weeks ago. See where that goes. Feels like everything is kind of settling in a little bit, folks. All right, so there are the markets for you. I don't know, Chinese national couple just got caught by U.S. Customs and Border Protection trying to smuggle a biological pathogen, which is considered a potential agro-terrorism weapon, into the U.S. Here to discuss is author of Plan Red, China's project to destroy America, and China is going to war. Gordon Chang. Gordon, always good to have you on, my friend. Thanks, China. So tell us specifically about this couple that's trying to bring in some biological pathogen and the significance of that, will you?
Yeah. This couple, Chinese nationals, were bringing in a fungus which could cause blight to grain, wheat, rice, barley, maize. I think this should be considered a biological weapons attack on the United States because we need to put this into context. In 2020, Americans in all 50 states received seeds from China unsolicited. And I think that this was an attempt to get Americans to plant invasive species into our country to attack our agriculture. This year, Temu, the online Chinese site, sent seeds unsolicited into the United States. So this is part of a long-term campaign to destroy our agriculture, and we should treat it as an attack, which means that this couple should not be treated through the civilian courts. I think that this is much more serious.
How did they catch him, Gordon? Was it just they were trying to board a plane, or they were trying to get off customs, get through customs once they got here in the United States?
In Detroit, yes, and just sharp-eyed customs inspectors. Plus, also, there's been monitoring of their email traffic, husband and wife. So there was an alert that this might happen. Now, the wife was able to get in a dangerous pathogen a year or so ago. So this time, the other one got caught. But, we're lucky. We've got to make sure that we stop all of this, which means that every container, every suitcase, every package, every envelope from China should be opened, because we know what the Chinese are doing, and we have the means to stop it. Yes, this will slow down commerce, but we absolutely have to do it, Eric.
Right, of course. I'm old enough to remember when 2019, when someone must have flown some virus in here that ended up killing 7 million people around the world. I think anything coming out of China right now should be highly scrutinized. Every piece of luggage. I agree with you. And maybe, just maybe, Gordon, these are dry runs, test runs to see what they can get away with, what they can bring in. Hell, they've been going through our southern border for the last 4 years. Maybe they're trying to figure out a new way in.
Northern border as well, Eric. So, for instance, last February, Border Patrol caught 3 Chinese nationals trying to sneak into Maine under cover of darkness. What made this really ominous was that there was a 4th Chinese national, a migrant, who was on our side of the border, obviously there by prearrangement to get him in. Now, if you're a desperate Chinese guy who wants to live in freedom, you surrender to Border Patrol because you want to get yourself in the system and you want to get generous benefits from localities like New York. But if you're trying to come in undetected, you're coming here for no good. And we're seeing this, especially across the northern border.
So FBI Director Kash Patel said that this case, I'm quoting here, this case is a sobering reminder that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions, target our food supply, and act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. Smuggling a known agro-terrorism agent into the U.S. is not just a violation of law, it's a direct threat to national security. So, and he does go on to say, I commend the FBI Detroit Division and our partners at CBP for stopping this biological threat before it could do real damage. Gordon, I spent enough time on the borders. In the southern border, San Diego specifically, in Texas as well, they will tell you, Border Patrol will tell you, they stop a lot of drugs. But what they do stop is somewhere around 2 to 3% of the drug traffic that comes through. They're not able to stop 97%. So if this Chinese couple gets caught, is it likely there's others doing the same thing?
Sure. And, we got to remember that a couple of years ago, an alert building inspector in Reedley, California, found what is essentially a secret Chinese biological weapons facility that had at least 20 pathogens, according to the official count, and almost 1,000 mice that have been genetically engineered to spread disease. One of those pathogens was Ebola, which has a 50% fatality rate. And I mention Ebola because at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, those fine friends who gave us COVID-19, they are now studying Ebola, and they're obviously trying to weaponize it.
Gain of function, Gordon? God bless the world if they're doing this again with Ebola. Can you imagine gain of function on Ebola, which is already deadly enough?
Yeah. The one thing about Ebola is that it's not readily transmissible human to human. So if the Chinese figure out how to keep the lethality rate high and make it contagious, then they've got a weapon to do what they've talked about, which is to exterminate the American people. So we're talking about an issue of national survival, which means that this couple in Detroit, I think they should be going to either Florence, Colorado, which is the supermax, or to Guantanamo Bay. But I think these people should be put away indefinitely.
Mm-hmm. Let's expand this a little bit. We have our China expert in Gordon. So Pete Hegseth, several days ago, warned, you probably flew right under the radar. He warned the world that he believes a China attack on Taiwan is imminent. Like it's going down for real, so to speak. What do you think of this warning? You think are we going to see China attack Taiwan?
It could be Taiwan, but I think it's a higher probability that war in East Asia starts elsewhere. So in the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, we have seen extremely belligerent Chinese military activity against South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, of course, Philippines, and faraway Australia. I worry about these low-level provocations because they could spiral out of control. And once they do, I don't think that the Chinese regime can deal responsibly with the world. So I worry about Taiwan, but I worry about these other places even more.
How worried, Gordon, are you about this new changing government, more, I guess, let's call them more communist for South Korea? They kind of took over the more conservative party, the more pro-American party. Are you concerned about, I talked to Steve Bannon daily. He's very, very worried about South Korea flipping to communist.
Yeah, that's a real possibility. I mean, a year from now, we could see South Korea as a communist state, or we could see it absorbed by North Korea. I'm not saying that will happen. I'm saying it could happen. Lee Jae-myung, who supposedly won the election after a lot of cheating, by the way, he ran as a moderate, but that was only to get elected. We know from his prior comments that he is very pro-China, very pro-North Korea, very anti-American. And, we have survived leftist presidents in South Korea before. But the thing about Yi is that he is more ruthless and more determined than previous leftists. So this is going to be a very difficult 5 years for us.
Bill O'Reilly says, no way. The South Korean economy is just pumping too well that they're not going to screw that up, moving to a more communist state. Thoughts?
Venezuela. Venezuela was once a prosperous capitalist state. Look what happened to it. So, yeah, it's inconceivable to us because we're Americans and we think the world operates one way. but it operates very differently. And the assumptions that we make are unwarranted. So, yes, we've got to be extremely concerned about what's going to happen in South Korea, because now they've got a president who, if he had his way, and I'm not saying he will, but if he had his way, he would terminate the treaty relationship with us, and he would make South Korea essentially a communist country.
I think we have 50,000 troops, in South Korea, especially looking at that the border to North Korea. Would they move our people off the island?
Oh yeah, I mean they could easily break the treaty. That's what Yi would want to do. Now he can't, because he's the president of a democratic state. He can't do exactly all that he wants. But as I said, he's much more ruthless and determined than previous leftists. So, yeah, we cannot take any of those scenarios off the table. And Bannon is right. This is something that we've got to worry about. This is something that we've got to manage. And it's going to be very difficult for us, because we're just not accustomed to thinking about what could happen in South Korea, which is one of the most volatile societies on earth.
Indeed, indeed. Gordon Chang, always good to have you, my friend. Talk to you again very, very soon.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Mind you about that podcast we do over on digital, doing things we not necessarily can't do here. We have Diddy all over the Diddy trial. It gets weirder and weirder by the day. Today, some lady stood up and started threatening the federal marshals who were in court. I kid you not. Got to go over there, subscribe. It's always free. Back in 2.5. Look at that. Mad Dog. Is that a school? What is that? Like a stable? Where's it in Baltimore, Mad Dog?
This is Fort McHenry.
Oh, Fort McHenry.
Baltimore.
Got it. Fort McHenry, Baltimore. I stand corrected. By the way, well, I won't get into Baltimore's problems because there are many. My next guest is the Principal Deputy Press Secretary and Special Assistant to the President. Always happy to have Harrison Fields join us. Harrison, you know why I'm glad you're here? Because you're so damn good, my friend, number one. Number two, when those clowns over at Fox start using you more and more, just promise me you'll come back to this show, because this is where it all started. You're doing a great job, Harrison. So listen, let's talk this one big, beautiful bill. Most Republicans, they're for it, but there are those who may not be for it, and they're standing, a few standalones, let's call it that, including Senator Rand Paul, who's saying he won't vote for it in its current form because of concerns for the debt ceiling. Just take a listen to the soundbite.
President Trump chided Kentucky Republican Rand Paul today for opposing the bill. Senator, he says that you don't understand the bill and that you love to vote no.
Well, I would say that's not actually true. I would say that I've been pretty consistent in my time in the Senate at being opposed to deficit spending.
And so, Harrison, the point is that you're going to need just about every Republican senator's vote to get the bill to Trump's desk to sign it into law. What's the response to Rand Paul and I think one or two others who are pushing back, at least for now?
Yeah, well, the president is committed to getting this bill across the finish line. Listen, we understand the math here. The margins aren't great in the House or the Senate, but the margins are actually worse in the House, so we're able to get the bill passed with no problem there. The president is a master negotiator. He's going to get all sides involved. We have senators coming here any minute now to work with this president, about 17 senators, to get this bill over the finish line. These are priorities that the Republican Party has prioritized, have campaigned on for years, and they now have a president willing and able to get this into one big, beautiful bill, which is going to be one big, beautiful step in the right direction. And again, this is a reconciliation bill. This is not a spending package. This is a reconciliation bill that is dealing with discretionary funding, and this is why it has tax cuts and a bunch of other priorities that this president has adopted in it. We encourage every senator to support it.
Now, is this accurate? Because I think this is a really good selling point for the bill. Look, I don't like anything that increases the debt or makes government bigger. However, if you look at the bill, everything that's spent is paid for, actually. And the reason why any debt would go up is because of the tax cuts. The tax cuts are the reason for any increase in the debt. Now that's a good selling point. I want my own money. I want to keep my own money. And yeah, if it makes the debt go up a little bit, it'll create economic activity if I get to keep and spend more of my own money.
Well, the American people voted for President Trump because they were tired of the Democrats throwing their money into the fire to fuel their addiction of reckless spending. This president understands that the American people have been taken advantage of both economically and a host of other ways, and we want to make sure that the American people have more money in their pockets, and this bill does that to a historic fashion. And when you talk about issues when it comes to saving money, this bill does something that we haven't been able to do in over 30 years, which is save $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. And then on top of that, we just sent over a rescissions package to the United States House of Representatives yesterday with $9.8 billion in rescissions, which are codifications of the good work of DOGE, what this president was able to do. So that for anyone that's saying we're not saving enough money, this bill is doing something we have never been able to do. Let's not make perfect the enemy of the good. This bill is historic. It contains every campaign promise that the president has made on the campaign trail. We encourage every senator to work with this White House, work with this president to get this bill on the president's desk.
So Elon Musk, obviously Mr. Doge, the guy who kind of invented Doge, and Doge is a thing. There's a Doge meeting going on right now. The subcommittee MTG is chairman of, and it's great. Everything about Doge makes a lot of sense. Government efficiency matters. Elon is upset. Now, we know he left. He's not there every day anymore, but he kind of left Doge, but he still got his finger in, but he's not happy with the bill, and he says, and I'm quoting, "This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination." And he added it in a Tuesday afternoon post on X, "Shame on those who voted for it. You know you're wrong. You know it. How does it feel?" How does the president feel about Elon, who they were very, very tight, now all of a sudden kind of nuking this one big, beautiful bill?
Well, I take everyone back to the Oval Office last week, in which he had a very public goodbye for Elon Musk. He thanked him for his service. Not many CEOs would take time away from the C-suite and their lavish lifestyle to come to the West Wing or the Eisenhower Executive Office building to go through spreadsheets of the government to see how we can cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And that's something that Elon Musk graciously did as long as his team is Doge. Doge continues. Doge is a part of the DNA here at the federal government, and we're making sure we're going to continue these cuts. Listen, the president is the CEO of this country. He has a promise to its shareholders, the American people who voted for him and really at large, to make sure that this bill gets passed. Elon Musk is a CEO from multiple companies that have their own interests. We may have a disagreement here today, but that doesn't take away from the accomplishments of Doge, the historic achievements that Elon Musk has been able to do as a part of President Trump's team. But the president has a commitment to get this bill passed, and he's not wavered by it.
Okay, so there are reports that he was pissed off at Musk and behind the scenes. I mean, I guess we won't know, but if you have any comment on that. Before we move on, are they still buddies? Is he still first bro?
Did you say 5 minutes? Eric, you know better than most, the president doesn't hold back his feelings on anyone. He's an equal opportunity offender. He will call it like it is. He calls a spade. And if he had any feelings about Elon or anyone else for that matter, you would hear from the president directly via Truth or on one of the many on-camera opportunities he gives the American people.
Or the one time I was at Mar-a-Lago and he came over to the table and he poked me in the shoulder and said, "Hey, I didn't like what you said about that one thing. Fix it." And then, of course, we clean things up. We clean things up when the leader of the free world says to clean stuff up. There was a call this morning. President Trump said that he had a long talk with Vladimir Putin, and he did say that Putin was planning and will plan some sort of aggression, return aggression against Zelensky in Ukraine. What else do we know about that, Harrison?
Well, again, this was another productive phone call. The president laid it out pretty clearly in his readout on Truth Social for the American people to see. This goes to show you his level of commitment. He's spoken to Putin so many times since joining office, something that President Biden wasn't able to do. Putin didn't want to talk to Biden. He looked at him as weak and feeble and not worthy of his time. And Putin understands that President Trump is a very different president. He's in the driver's seat, and he wants to make sure that he's coordinating with the American government on every move that he's making. The president's also talking to Vladimir Zelensky. The key priority here of the president and the national security team is peace. Whatever he has to do to achieve that magical word peace is exactly what the president's going to do. The president talked about in his truth message. This is a lot harder than many people are realizing. We don't have two sides that are necessarily in agreement of how they want to come to end this war, but the president and his national security team are committed to making sure that this war ends. And they also mentioned the issue of Iran. We want to make sure that Iran never gets the ability to form nuclear weapons. That would be devastating, not just for America, our strong ally Israel, but really for the entire world. So this president
Harrison,
is negotiating with world leaders
all great
to make sure that this world is peace.
All great, and the American people are behind that. I just have to ask this: does the president know? Who knows? Do we know? Do you know? Can you help the American people figure this out? Because there are a lot of people who think Zelensky went alone. He attacked the Russian assets, the $7 billion worth of airplanes, nuclear-capable airplanes in the Russian fleet. We called it the Russian Pearl Harbor. Was the Trump administration notified prior to that attack?
I believe Caroline confirmed that they were not notified of that attack when it happened. But the one thing about this, because it's such a sensitive national security issue, is that, Caroline Leavitt, myself, many of the people that are speaking on these issues are not going to litigate the dynamics of such a complicated war on your show or on any other show. That, of course, would be irresponsible. And we're letting our national security team lead these negotiations, which are ongoing and productive, more productive than they've been over the last 4 years. But we've got work to do, and no one is downplaying the fact that this president is so committed to ending this war. He just needs partners in Ukraine and Russia to join him on that mission.
We send $180+ billion to Ukraine. You think the least he could do, Zelensky, would be pick up a phone and let Trump know, at least as the drones were on their way. But if he didn't even do that, boy, I would say these folks are on their own. Good. We wish you well, and let's get the hell out of NATO. Harrison, appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. We always appreciate you coming in and letting us know what, again, speaks for the president, Deputy Press Secretary to the president. Thank you so much for your time.
It's always a pleasure, Eric. Take care.
Okay, folks, we'll be back 2.5 minutes. Beautiful. Well, I mean, not that. It was Washington. It was going to be Washington, D.C. It was going to be the White House. It was going to be from, I guess, the other side, the back side, the front side of the White House, but on the other side is the Capitol. When are they finally going to admit it? When is the leftist machine going to admit that radical Islam is not just a problem, but it's also a homeland security problem? Free Palestine is no longer freedom of speech. It's no longer just an expression. What's going on? What's the take? How many terrorist attacks? How many deaths does it take? After days of skirting the issue, the facts are out now. The Colorado terrorist, who was here illegally, by the way, folks, overstayed his visa. I'm just going to say that a few times because the mainstream media refuses to. Turns out the dude who has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood really likes him some jihad.
الله أكبر من كل شيء، الله أكبر من الصهاينة، الله أكبر من أمريكا وأسلحتها، الله أكبر من طائرات الF-35، الله أكبر مما هو دونه.
I'm quoting, jihad is more important than everything else. A jihadist in our country, a terrorist, but, Boulder police say motive is still unclear. So, definitely don't listen to what the terrorist says himself, Boulder police, you dumb asses. Because God forbid we tie this Free Palestine terrorist to the other Free Palestine people who've pervaded our cities, our streets, and our universities. Right, NBC? He's a lone wolf, says NBC. How the hell do you know that, NBC? He's a lone wolf, says NBC. Look how hard the media is working to set him apart. Lone wolf. Believe me, those words are so carefully and strategically chosen. They have no idea if he's a lone wolf. It's a week out. Less than a week out. Just a string of lone wolf attacks aimed at the same group using the same rhetoric based on the same ideology, terrorism. Oh, and look, guys, the lone wolf's daughter had dreams of being a doctor. Are we supposed to care? Does that somehow make your father a better person? Her father's a terrorist who wants Jews, Americans, all of the West wiped out. Jihad is most important of anything, remember? He said it himself. He was in the country illegally. and he firebombed Americans, sometimes older Americans. But now we're supposed to be, sympathetic to her plight? You know what? Since Democrats are obsessed with due process, let's play a little game here, shall we? Here we go. Due process. Question number 1, are you here illegally? Answer, yes. Okay, that alone should be enough. But since we're being nice and kind of due process-y kind of people here, here's one more question. Question number 2, is anyone in your family a literal terrorist? Well, the answer, my young lady wannabe doctor, yes, your father is a known terrorist. Deport, due process achieved. Any other questions, Hakeem, Chucky, Chris Van Hollen? You want to have some cocktails with this guy? But MSNBC got their marching orders, and they're just not having it when terrorists and his family get the boot from our precious homeland.
Making an example is understating it, Willie. You know, the White House almost gloating at Victory Lap. A number of tweets last night about about this suspect's family, rushing them out. And I was told by a White House advisor late yesterday that this is sort of the plan here. Is that we know from covering Donald Trump for a long time, his reflex is always to come back to immigration. He believes that's a signature issue. He believes that's what got him elected, and that Americans want to see things like this. Now, in this case, obviously, we don't know the family's involvement. The suspect is accused of a heinous crime. There are certainly plenty of Americans who would be glad to see him go, but might have questions about the family. But they're leaning into this sort of in-your-face imagery.
In-your-face imagery? That's interesting, because you mean the imagery of a guy throwing firebombs at innocent people while yelling "Free Palestine"? There's an image I can't stop thinking about. I know that's tough imagery for you to swallow, BS, NBC. But also, by the way, did you hear this?
White House almost gloating at Victory Lap. A number of tweets last night about about this suspect's family.
Maybe Freudian slip there. Well, which is it? Is the terrorist a victim or a suspect? Listen, when they speak, they reveal everything. The suspect is a terrorist who was here thanks to Joe and Kamala. But here's a little nifty little flashback for you.
This is irresponsible. It's the height of irresponsibility for the commander-in-chief to suggest that we have to build a wall across our southern border because there are terrorists who are trying to invade the country.
Well, that's interesting, because I would actually argue that the height of irresponsibility is actually letting a terrorist in and letting them stay. But I guess we're just a little different, you and me, Kamala. Well, but tell us again how the blood is on President's hands, you dumbass Keith Olbermann.
The Boulder, Colorado terror attack, the improvised flamethrowers, the attempt to burn Jews alive for commemorating the hostages of Gaza. This is the fault of Donald Trump.
Hasn't his 15 minutes been well expired, Olbermann, you absolute insane lunatic? This is the fault of the leftist movement, Pride, Climate, BLM, and now pro-Hamas. It's one and the same. Don't you believe me?
Let's talk about our favorite flags.
Oh, like overall, what my favorite flag? Yeah. Hezbollah.
By the way, I don't know, can you show that one more time? Mad Dog, can you re-record this? The guy over on the left is Cenk Uyghur's cousin or nephew, something like that. Total leftist. You show that picture, can you? No?
Let's talk about our favorite flags.
Oh, like overall, what my favorite flag? Yeah. Hezbollah.
Hezbollah, a terrorist organization that wants to end America. Folks, we have a terrorist radical Islamic movement right here on our hands, here in America, on our soil. It's real. Global Intifada is here at home in America. It's on our college campuses. It's on our streets. It's spreading. It's in our own damn government. It's an inconvenient truth for the left, so protective of only certain groups. Imagine if a white man had thrown firebombs at Muslims. Imagine the coverage, the headlines, the protests, BLM style, mostly peaceful looting. They'd be painting the Muslim flags on the streets. It's not a story. It's not their story right now. It doesn't fit their agenda. They do everything they can to protect this man's identity, petrified of Islamophobia. And don't ever conflate this so-called lone wolf with the protests at our universities. Except that they already are. They're conflated completely. Yet another tie to terrorism. Turns out that Tarek Bazrouk, currently awaiting trial, a Jew hater, who protested against Israel on Columbia University's campus and contemplating setting a student on fire, allegedly had a direct link to Hamas. Hamas's deadly Al-Qassam Brigade's militant group. It's conflated. This isn't about a lone wolf. There's a massive Jew-hating, America-hating terrorist wolf pack alive and kicking here in America. But that's not Islamophobia. In this case, the term exists only to intimidate people into silence. Like you're a racist. Call people racist, and they're not, they'll shut up. Call them Islamophobic, they'll shut up. A term like Islamophobia is just another handy tool in their arsenal. No one is afraid of Islam per se, which is what the word Islamophobia implies. We're afraid of Islamic terrorists killing our people. But many people do fear becoming the victims of said Islamic terrorism. They're afraid of being killed in our own homes, in our offices by wild-eyed jihadists. They're afraid of car bombs or fire bombs and guys shouting, Allahu Akbar, or Free Palestine, while filming themselves slaughtering innocent people. It's rational to be afraid of Islamic terror. It's understandable to be angry about the World Trade Center. I was there. The Boston Marathon, the Orlando nightclub, or New Orleans, Colorado now. The list goes on, and it won't stop. It isn't a phobia to fear and be angry about senseless death delivered in the name of Allah, their God. But doing so is classified very differently. Now it's Islamophobia. Right now, the media is actively playing cover-up for the terrorist's identity, his ties. They're petrified that the pro-Hamas movement here in America could be harmed in a way by this guy who has, in their eyes, given it a bad name. Aw. But the movement deserves a bad name, all on its own. And defending these lunatics and their movement is wholly un-American. It's defending a group whose interests distinctly conflict with ours as Americans. And it's not Islamophobic to point that out. It's fact. This was Manhattan, hours after the New Orleans attack in January, chanting, globalize the Intifada. Wow, just hours after all got to see what globalizing the Intifada looks like in New Orleans, these people were calling for more terrorism in America. I'm against whatever that is being okay in my country. I'm just against that. It's not Islamophobic, but whatever that is, we need to point that out. Deport terrorist sympathizers, the whole lot of them. Deport their family, too. How about that? It's not Islamophobic to say that. It's called America First. And the Democrats and the mainstream media, maybe you should try that out. All right, folks, before we go, I want to let you know about a big special I'm hosting, airing this weekend called the Rio Reset. Tune in this Saturday to RAV at 4 p.m. I, along with the Birch Gold Group folks, will tell you all you need to know about this big event happening in Rio in July. It's big. It could cost all of us a lot of money. You have to protect. It is special this weekend, 4 o'clock Saturday. We'll be back 2.5 minutes. That looks nice. Prescott, Arizona. Look at that live shot. Nice, beautiful sky there, Prescott. In case you missed it, we were just chatting with Harrison Fields from the White House Deputy Comms Director. We asked him about this. But Elon Musk had some pretty strong words for President Trump's big, beautiful bill yesterday on X, where he wrote, quoting, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. Well, Musk's tweet started some pretty serious chatter in Washington and beyond, even here in West Palm Beach. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was asked about Elon's tweet, and here's what she had to say.
And something that just crossed, Caroline, how mad do you think President Trump is going to be when he finds out that Elon Musk said, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it.
Look, the president already knows where Elon Musk stood on this bill. It doesn't change the president's opinion. This is one big, beautiful bill, and he's sticking to it.
All right, staying with it, Senator Rand Paul weighed in on the growing feud, tweeting his support for Elon's message, where Rand Paul wrote, I agree with Elon. We've both seen the massive waste in government spending, and we know another $5 trillion in debt is a huge mistake. We can and must do better. Okay, so Trump had apparently heard and seen enough by the time Rand Paul pressed send on that tweet. The president finally weighed in on Truth Social, saying this, quote, Rand votes no on everything, but never has any practical or constructive ideas. His ideas are actually crazy. The people of Kentucky can't stand him. This is a big growth bill, and the feud goes on. Other news, Ted Cruz looked Cory Booker in the face and called him Spartacus. It was hysterical, especially because Cory Booker is on a run right now of pissing off just about everyone. Listen to this exchange.
You are very, very, sir, very, very deep into the waters of hypocrisy in your criticisms of Chuck Schumer.
So let the record reflect that Spartacus did not answer the question and did not tell us whether the criminal law should be enforced, because he knows the answer is yes. And he knows that the Biden Department of Justice was being wildly political and partisan in refusing to enforce the law because they disagreed with the Supreme Court justice's rulings.
Spartacus. If you remember, Cory Booker called himself Spartacus. J.D. Vance has done a great job staying out of the spotlight and doing his work for the American people. But when J.D. does step into that light, he owns the moment every time. He sat with Orrin Cass and gave us another lighthearted signature moment. Listen to this interchange.
There are politicians out there they've just been politicians. But you are someone who was an intellectual first. Some people don't like the word intellectual, but I mean it in the good sense of the term. You were writing for National Review. You were at the bar late at night arguing about and helping shape these ideas that you are now.
I come here for free and you insult me and you call me an intellectual. Remind me that I wrote for National Review. What an this guy is.
That's fair. I will admit that I, too, wrote for National Review.
Yeah, by the way, hosts mistake all the time, having a long conversation, act like you know what you're talking about, and then finally asking a dumb question. Just ask the question. Let your guest answer. Charlemagne the God sat down with Eric Swalwell and asked him about a ton of stuff. He brought up some of the very elephant in the room, the Chinese spy. Remember Fang Fang? Asked him about Nancy Pelosi, but absolutely shredded the current Democrat message. Listen to what he said right to Swalwell's face.
Why do a lot of Democrats still talk like Donald Trump is campaigning? Like when I hear y'all speak, it's like everything is anti-Trump, 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 which I understand because, he is doing a lot of things that I would consider corrupt and unconstitutional. But he's in the White House already. Yeah. Like you're not running against him anymore. You still talk like you're campaigning against him, like you're trying to convince America he's bad, he's bad, he's bad. Yeah. He's in the White House. He's the president. Yeah. There has to be another strategy.
Like him or not, Charlemagne the God he's pretty fair. I mean, he's pretty fair. Clearly leans left, but he calls them out too. It's a really fascinating podcast that guy hosts. And Swalwell, I don't know, he's so cringe. I mean, if you're not watching what he's doing on Instagram, I mean, it's just everything he does. It's just gives you goosebumps how cringy he is. Hakeem Jeffries has no problem lying to any face that meets his gaze. Here he is again talking about rising inflation, which we're actually not seeing here. It's actually going down. But let's call him poor man's Obama, make a fool out of himself again.
Costs aren't going down under Republican complete control of government. They are going up. Inflation is going up. The cost of living is going up. Life is becoming more unaffordable for everyday Americans. Donald Trump and Republicans broke their promise.
No, actually the opposite, Hakeem. Inflation is going down. It's going down every single month, and it will continue to go down with the oil prices as they go down. Well, Hakeem Jeffries lies about the economy and inflation. Well, that came moments after he threatened ICE officers for just doing their job. Listen to these big threats towards these working men and women who are carrying out the assignment that millions of Americans voted for, by the way, and all they're doing is protecting themselves and their families' lives. Watch.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identities from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that. This is America. This is not the Soviet Union. We're not behind the Iron Curtain. This is not the 1930s. And every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will, of course, be identified. That, in fact, is the law.
Hakeem Jeffries, you absolute moron. You absolute freaking moron. Do you have any sense in your mind? These ICE agents, these agents with this FBI, ICE, HSI, federal marshals, they cover their face when they're arresting Tren de la Agua thugs, gangbangers, because Tren de la Agua, we now know, has high-tech facial recognition software. You take a picture of someone's face, you can find out everything about them now. And they have that software. So Hakeem, why don't you publish your address? Why don't you go ahead and publish where your family lives and let the world know where you live, Hakeem, you moron, you absolute dolt. What the hell? Really? How about all our agents around the world? Should we out their locations, names, and families' locations too? Hakeem, you clown. I got to go. We're going to go to break. I'm pissed off. I want to talk to Bannon on the backside of the break. So there's a live shot. Nolans, right? Mad Dog, live?
Yeah, Nolans.
Live?
Yes, sir, live.
That's the French Quarter. So a little bit south of the French Quarter there, right on, what is it, body of water, I guess. It's the Gulf of America, I guess it is. And place, just a wonderful place to have food and a great place. Listen, let's bring in Steve Bannon. I got to talk to him about this, Steve. Trump had a call. Put up the Truth Social, guys. Trump had a call with Putin this morning, went an hour and 15 minutes. And he said Putin told him he was going to retaliate. He was going to attack Ukraine. And subsequently, Steve, we talked about this yesterday, there was no heads-up call from Zelensky to Trump prior to attacking the Russian military airplanes and nuclear airplanes. So Trump didn't get a heads up after we give that SOB $180 billion plus. Didn't tell Trump. He just went and did it on his own with Lindsey Graham there. I mean, break this down for us, this call, hour and 15-minute call with Putin. How do you think that went?
First off, don't bury the lead. The first thing he told him is no peace deal. He said there's no peace deal.
Yeah.
And I'm forced to retaliate in a big way, I think, according to President Trump. And when President Trump uses the words big in talking to Putin, look, this is the Third World War. This is what I said the other day. This is unprecedented. Since we were allies in World War II, there's never been an assault by anybody affiliated with the United States, and particularly it hasn't been clear in the White House. President Trump still hasn't condemned it after Putin says we're going to hit back in a large way. I don't have it in front of me, whether he said we're going to hit back Ukraine or just we're going to hit back.
I don't have it in front of me, but I remember the comment. The comment Putin made, and it was actually on camera, a soundbite, where he said, we'll hit back Ukraine, and we will hit him back, Ukraine, and anyone involved, and beyond. And beyond are the two words that are really troublesome.
Yeah. Well, today, I don't know if he reiterated that or just said Ukraine, because that came from the other day. But you're right. You're 100% correct, is that this is going up the escalatory ladder. Now, a couple things might have happened. Number one, I'm still not convinced. Jack Posobiec's not convinced. I'm not so sure Eric Bolling's convinced that the deep state, the guys running the war out of Wiesbaden, which the New York Times told us a year ago and nobody refuted it, that German and American intelligence are basically running it, and the Ukrainian guys are getting them coffee. They're running it out of Germany. It's over 3,000 miles into Russia. At the type of bases they went to, folks, think about this. These bombers, they're older, but they're equivalent like the B-52s. Now, they're up on runways, but you have to have satellite targeting for this. You have to have target acquisition, artificial intelligence. It was an audacious attack, but well beyond the capabilities of the Ukrainians, just like the October 7th attack was well beyond the capabilities.
Can we highlight this for my audience so they, so you think that the sophistication of this attack begs the question, was the U.S., were we involved somehow in intel or more planning, et cetera? And if so, did you read anything in that Trump comment after that hour and 15-minute conversation on the phone, anything that would kind of prophylactically shield the United States from any sort of retaliation by Putin? Or did he open the door for potentially us or one of our allies?
What I didn't see remember, President Trump, let's go through the timeline. President Trump put this Truth Social up and immediately pulled it down. I'm sure somebody in the Nationals, Rubio or one of, Pete Hegseth or Scott Besson or somebody, they probably try to say, hey, maybe we're going to put that down. That's a readout that may be a little too specific. what I didn't see, which I hoped to have seen in that, was President Trump condemning the Ukrainian assault. He didn't condemn it, and he didn't say, I'm pulling money for it. In fact, you've got a senior U.S. senator over there who's very close to the defense industry, and he's on the front page of every paper in Paris. He's on the front page of every paper in Germany. He's doing nothing but primetime media all over there, and he's saying, hey, Trump says they got no cards. I think they got cards right before the assault, number one. Number two, he's sitting there implying he's got votes for a sanctions deal that can override a veto. And you've got Mike Pompeo. What the hell is Mike Pompeo, a former head of the CIA and State Department? What is he doing in Odessa? He's in Odessa down there, and he's talking about, even before the assault, that there, we got to stop Putin. We got to stop the reinitiation of the Russian Empire. What? Well, the American people are not at war with the Russian people, and we are being inexorably drawn in this. And I think President Trump has got to say, look, the following. Number one, either I've done an investigation review and deep state members of the intelligence services and others actually did this, and I will hold them accountable, or we had nothing to do with it. I wasn't given a heads up by Zelensky. I condemn what he did, and we stop all further support. Both monetary support, we essentially pay for the entire.
He must have said that on this with call with Putin, hey, listen, I didn't get this heads up. Yeah, not that I could have done anything had I gotten it, but I certainly didn't get it. That was all him on his own. But you're saying that it was so sophisticated, he may be saying that and not knowing or not.
Well, he maybe wants plausible deniability, but Eric, I would assume that the president notifying the American people, he had over an hour phone call with Putin, talking about. Putin said, and President Trump said, this call's not that we're not going to have a meeting to what leads to peace. That these efforts don't lead. So he already said the peace thing's off the table for now. And then he said Putin told him he's going to hit back and hit back hard. Yeah. You would assume that the president, who's a pretty sophisticated guy, would have said right there, I don't know anything about that. We didn't know anything about this attack. I want to reiterate that. I condemn it. I told the Russian president I condemned it, and I'm pulling out all support. That was not there. That's the dog that didn't bark, right? So, hey, folks, we are now sucked in to a shooting war on the Eurasian landmass, and we should stand by and see what Russia's going to do. I'm sure Russia is going to do something that will, as we say, leave a mark.
Very quickly, I know we're into your show, Steve, but I just want to ask you if Russia does retaliate with Ukraine and I don't know, Poland, Poland, if they do, are we sucked in? I mean, are we still held by NATO?
It's not a random event that tomorrow the Chancellor of Germany is come over for a meeting. It just got called. When did that meeting get called? Well, at least what we know publicly is that TASS, which is the Russian news agency, and take it for what it's worth. Okay, it's a propaganda arm of the criminal class of Putin. These guys, the KGB guys that run the deal. They put out the other day that just given the back and forth, this is before the big assault, just given the back and forth they were doing on drone strikes, and Russia was all over these guys hitting with drone strikes, and they were hitting back, that they said publicly that the Russian military is starting to do target acquisition packages in Berlin, around Berlin. And next thing you know, Mertz is coming over here for a meeting with President Trump. Folks, go back and read your history of the lead up of 1939, 1941. These are the types of things that happened.
What's this
that
mean?
lead you on
is
to pass the war.
Is this a hat in hand? Save us, God help us, because we're going to need your help if this thing gets crazy.
I don't think it's. I think the thing is that we and the French and the UK are pulling together, and we see these guys as a problem. We agree with Pompeo. Lindsey Graham's telling us that he's on our side. We're NATO. We're the global. We're the European elite, and you need to jump in here. Yeah. And they're going to get hit tomorrow. You said that Ukraine has no cards. Well, Ukraine's got a lot of cards. Including doing an assault, as I keep saying, Curtis LeMay, the greatest strategic bombing general we've ever had, that brought the Germans to their knees and then brought the Japanese to their knees. In his wildest fantasy, he never had a plan to take out 40% of the strategic bombing of the nuclear triad of the Russians. That's what happened, and people understand the Russians take that damn personally.
With a single $1 million worth of drones.
$1 million worth of drones. The other thing, just to let people make sure they understand, as bad as Putin is, he's got ultra-nationalists to the right of him that think he's been too much patty cake with this. They think they'll let the Americans get away with openly running the Ukraine war and saying, hey, we don't do anything about it. So Putin's got guys to his right. Remember the Wagner group they took out? Yeah. They got guys to his right that are sitting there saying, you're being too much of a wimp. You better hit back. So they took out bridges. They took out this audacious strike on the strategic bombers. And people should just, stand by. And he told President Trump he's coming and he's coming hard. And President Trump told us. So now it's, I guess, get focused. But I haven't seen a condemnation from the. So I assume if you haven't condemned it, that we were part of it. I just do. Or he wasn't told about it or something like that. There's no good options here.
I hope not. I hope it's a different discussion. He just kind of paraphrased and left some of the important parts out, which may be the case. I'm optimistic.
See, hold it, Bolling. Hang on. I see Bolling's strategy. See, this is the difference. I'm not a professional in this space. I'm some guy that kind of wandered into this, in the podcast world where you can be non-professional. Bolling is a professional, left finance, and for years was at Fox News. He was the golden boy at Fox. As he reminds us all the time, he subbed for O'Reilly when O'Reilly was the #1 show in the nation 250 times. He was the guy in the center chair at the 5 when it kicked off. He's a pro. He does this change-off now and asks great questions because I notice every day that I pick up and see what traction our show got. My stuff is always up with Eric Bolling now. They don't go to the war room. They wait to the Eric Bolling. They get the Eric Bolling thing that gets up there and gets and goes viral. But Eric, thank you.
Listen, I told you every single day I learn something with Steve Bannon. Steve, your show. See you tomorrow, brother. And we're all watching
Eric,
War Room
you're
now.
the best. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate you, brother.